Being a GM is hard. Being a good GM is impossible without these 5 tips. Welcome to Dice Anvil. Hello, welcome back to Dice Anvil. Today, I am very excited to be talking about a topic that I have learned over the years, what I'm still learning now, how to be a great GM. We all know the great GMs of our generation, but what makes them different than you when you gather around the table with your own friends? Well, I don't know because I'm not Burnley Mulligan or Matt Mercer, but I have noticed things that they do which I haven't done for years, and I want to change that. This video applies to anyone that's trying to learn how to GM their TTRPG, or even players that want to learn how to best support the game. So stick around and consider hitting like and subscribe. Number 1. A good GM understands narrative. There's a massive debate in the TTRPG world between 2 ways of gaming: railroading and sandbox. Do you make every single story beat for your players to encounter, or do you throw them in the middle of a world with no clear objective or purpose? I would say the answer is, and has always been, simple: both. Think about any other story. The threat is determined and put at the forefront of the character's mind. But the characters have their own free will of how they're going to solve these problems. Frodo decided to turn around and go through the mines of Moria. Luke Skywalker decided to face Vader in The Empire Strikes Back. Both of these choices had repercussions, but they were autonomous to the characters. And the objectives never changed: destroy the ring, defeat the Sith. How do you make your players feel like this in your games? You present the problem and you give opportunities to move forward the narrative and solve it. And if you make the main villain have one type of kryptonite that kind of forces them to go to this one location, it doesn't really feel like a choice at that point. What you could do is have different ways present themselves of how they could go about defeating this villain and let them go from there. You'll be surprised at what your players come up with and how much better they are than what you could have come up with. I'm making a TTRPG right now, and with the rulebook, I'm gonna have a campaign guide. And that guide only comes with a couple things. It comes with a problem, possible endings, and constants, which are guaranteed to happen in the world. That's it. I trust that the players and the GM of my game will fill in the gaps and tell the story that they want to tell. Number 2, a good GM makes the world feel alive. When I'm playing a TTRPG, I want to feel important. I want to know that I'm not a small speck in this fantasy world that we're playing in. I spend enough time in real life lingering on my ultimate insignificance in this cold, dark eternity of time and space, and I want my players to feel like the most important people in this world. And guess what stops that from happening every single time? A world that does not care what they do. Don't be the GM that your players can get away with being murder hobos just because all NPCs just don't notice that people are dying left and right. Have a law enforcement investigation in the background of the campaign, investigating why this body here, even though the players definitely killed that guy for no reason. And don't let them go unrecognized throughout the whole campaign. Have NPCs talk about rumors of what the party has done in the past and who they are. There's so many ways you can make the world feel like it acknowledges them. This also means that there are consequences to their actions. Like if they fail an adventure, they let people die, that should be acknowledged too. Number 3, a good GM makes combat interesting. I love combat in RPGs. Sometimes. One time I was on an adventure, we came across 3 stone golems. We were told to roll for initiative, and so began the most miserable few hours of my life. The GM eventually had the golems just run away because they could tell that we were miserable throughout the whole thing. Why was that miserable? I got 3 reasons why. There was no motivation, no goals, and no dynamics to the fight. There was no motivation because we had no emotional attachment to these stone golems. I don't even know if they were doing anything wrong. I think they were just there and we came into their home and started trying to kill them. Morally gray at best. We lacked a goal because guess what? If we were losing the battle, we would have just turned around and ran away. The biggest payoff was for us to continue our walk up this mountain past these golems. The fight wasn't dynamic because we couldn't negotiate with them. Every time we tried to use our environment to fight them, it didn't work. So we ended up just punching them for a long time, and it gets boring after an hour. How would a GM fix this? At the risk of overkilling my point, let's set the scene like this. The players are on the way up the mountain after encountering one of the players' home villages massacred. On the way up the mountain, they encounter 3 stone golems, and one of them is holding a family heirloom. The player is then filled with rage, knowing that he's responsible for his home getting destroyed. He draws his weapon and runs at them. Boom, motive. In this case, revenge. I know this will take more work on the GM, but already we're seeing a huge difference here. Now let's say one of the stone golems tries to run away to get help from maybe some more stone golems that are nearby. Now, even if the other players aren't necessarily motivated to fight these guys, they are definitely have a goal now: neutralize the golems and stop the reinforcements from coming. The GM can allow opportunities to defeat the golems in creative ways. A nearby cliff, an open fire, a giant boulder bouncing overhead that can easily be pushed off and crush what's below. There you go. This is now a very interesting fight with high stakes and high motive. Something I always do when trying to make a combat encounter is ask myself, what do the enemies want? What do they not want? And how are a couple ways they can be stopped? Number 4. A good GM is adaptable. You should plan out your game nights. You should plan out your adventures. You should have an idea of what your characters should do, but don't overdo it. GMs make this mistake over and over again when they plan out how they want their players to go about solving a problem or where they should go next, and they do exactly what they did not expect. And nothing is more frustrating than when you spend hours writing out a story and different details of a place, and the players just decide to go the exact opposite way. And this is no one's fault. The first 2 letters of RPG stand for roleplay and the autonomy of these characters. It's what makes this storytelling game so unique and so much fun. So what you can't do is throw a big hissy fit whenever the players don't talk to that random NPC that you sort of described as a little bit weird. I've done that. I put lots of work into this one area, this one situation, this one niche decision that they should have made, but they don't do it, and now I gotta restart, I gotta do all this. It's okay, because you're a good GM and you're adaptable. If the players need a piece of information, but they don't talk to people at the bar, have them overhear it in another area. I used to get so frustrated that my players couldn't read my mind and know exactly what I want them to do to progress the story because I'm the GM and I know best. But that's not always true. The only way to achieve this is by becoming comfortable knowing what's gonna happen next, but not knowing how. I know that the story will build up to the players finding out that the Duke has been evil all along and had this epic fight with the royal guards, but they don't need to do exactly what I suspect they'll do to figure all that out. As long as the players know that there is a threat, I can trust that any and all roads that they take will lead to a good story. Number 5, a good GM works with the players. The channel How to Be a Great GM has made a free class that's a year long with all the YouTube videos uploaded on their channel. And it's about how to be a great GM. One of the first points they make is that a GM is not an entity. It's another player in this cooperative game. If you're the GM, you can relieve yourself from the burden of knowing every single street sign, name of NPC, what their mom's favorite cooking is, blah, blah, all the complex dynamics that make this huge world so immersive. Your players should play a part in doing that. When they build a character, use their backstory and let them have creative power to how the world works. In the game I'm making, there's not a lot of cities or town, and that's on purpose. I want the players to not be afraid to tell me where they're from and how their culture is, and I want to visit it at some point in the game and let them describe what it's like to be there. In Trichonomus, there's a mechanic for certain abilities that a player can roll when encountering a random NPC to determine their past relationship with them. I love that because it fleshes out the world and it shows us that it's not so two-dimensional. There are layers. Like, you might know someone random, like, oh, small world, how are you doing? Or, oh, my ex is this random bartender. This is awkward. It makes the game feel more personal and shows that the GM doesn't have sovereign power over every detail of the game. 1, that's exhausting, and 2, that's not how TTRPGs are supposed to be. Some of what you'll say will be made up on the fly, and that's okay. Take it easy on yourself, and remember, the GM gets to have fun too. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Leave a comment down below what you thought about these tips, or if you have more tips, I would love to hear that input. Again, I'm still learning. I'm still learning from all these people, all these other channels, and you that comment. Please consider liking, subscribing to join the Dice Anvil army. We're starting small, but we're building up, all right? If you're hearing me talking about this TTRPG that I've been building and you're curious, go check it out in my channel. Hey, tell your GM thank you today, all right? And if you're a GM, tell yourself thank you. You guys have a great day.